Hey everyone, so today we're going to be working on an advanced beginner to intermediate Scratch project. For this project we'll be creating a kind of interactive chatbot. So the chatbot is going to be the sprite that you choose and it's going to interact with the user, whether that be yourself or a friend or somebody that you post, maybe you share this online. So today that's what I'm going to walk you through. And you do need to have knowledge of Scratch to do this project, as I'll be taking you through different code blocks and how to set it up and how to set up the interactions. But you do need to know where the blocks are and how they work and all of kind of like the basics of Scratch to do this project, as I will not be going into super detail on each of the code blocks. Okay, so first I'm going to run the program to show you how interacting with the chatbot works, and then I'll take you through each block at a time to get you set up, and so that you can hopefully by the end of this video be able to create your own unique and custom chatbot experience. So to get started, I'm just going to click the green flag. And right away you see we can start interacting. So the point is to be able to interact with the chatbot sprite that you've created, and to be able to offer different answers. So for this one, how I gave one answer, there's also going to be an ask and an answer in the coding as well. That's going to allow you, if you do get answer A, then you'll give a different response. Or if you give answer B, then there'll be a different response than if you gave the first answer. So being able to code that and just knowing kind of your operators and where your control and how your loops and statements work, you will need to know that for this project. So if you are new to Scratch and kind of jumping in with this project, maybe just take a few minutes before the video to kind of familiarize yourself with it. And again, as it runs, you see that my answer has been incorporated into the chatbot's response. And so that's something we're going to do during this video as well. And you can also make yours as long or as short as you want. This is just kind of a base standard code block for you to get started. Many of us have done this one before or something similar to this. And he made a joke, so that's really funny. I was supposed to say ash you, but you know, it's a joke. Okay, so now we're ending the interaction there. So that was the complete interaction. So how I'm going to take you through this again, I'm going to take you through block by block. So versus some of the beginner lessons and videos where you do maybe one code kind of drag at a time, instead we're going to work through a whole chunk of code at one time. So again, having some familiarity with Scratch is going to help you a lot in this because it is more of an advanced intermediate class. So to get started, go ahead and select your character or your sprite, whatever you want to do. I just have here, I actually renamed mine Josh. I think he's originally named Devin. So you can pick at least one sprite or character to interact with the user. And I've also chosen 3 backdrops. So as you're doing your character and sprite, go ahead and go directly into your backdrops. You can create them custom, upload them from online, or just get them right from the backdrop selector here. So once you've done that, you have your character and you have your backdrops. My character is going to be doing costume changes as well. So there will be multiple costume changes, mostly I think two to 3 different costume changes, but intermittently as different aspects of the code pops up. So when he says certain things, he makes different expressions, and that's when the costume changes happen. So if you have picked a character that doesn't have costume changes, but you want to express a different emotion when they're going through different answers, maybe you switch your costume or maybe you switch your character so that you do have someone that has at least 2 different costume changes. And also doing maybe 1 or challenge yourself to do 2, 3, or even more backdrop changes throughout this this tutorial. And again, this is kind of a basic foundation for how to do this chatbot. And I encourage you again to just kind of play around with the interaction. You can make it like mine to start, or you can kind of just really jump in and make something super custom and something super cool for the user to experience. Okay, so I'm going to get started. We're going to break this down into sections. So first, I'm going to walk you through this first block of code. So we want to start with our when flag clicked, just to make it a bit easier when you are interacting with a different user for this chatbot, because it is very interactive. So when flag clicked is a really good one. You can also do like when space key hit if you want to just kind of start it intermittently. That's also a good event to start this project on. So the first two blocks I'm going to start off with is your switch backdrop and your switch costume. So mine starts off with costume of Devin A. So when he's just smiling face, basic greeting, happy character. And then my backdrop is going to switch to playground. So what you see now is going to be my starting backdrop. It's also going to be my ending backdrop, but again, yours can be different. So grab your first two blocks, your backdrop and your costume, and you want to set those again to whatever you want your opening to be. So wherever your situation is starting out, your interaction is starting, get your backdrop set to that, and again, grabbing that drop-down folder and doing that there. So our first two blocks there. Next, we're going to set up our first ask. Our ask, again, found in our sensing, your introduction. Mine here is hello there, what's your name? That's a good introduction, depending on what story or which way you're taking this project. It could be something similar, or if you're doing something a little more adventurous, maybe you're on a moon adventure and you're interacting with an alien or something, it might be something a little bit more different. So grabbing your ask from your sensing blocks, and that's going to be set up right underneath your costume. Next, our next four blocks, we're going to be our switch costume, say with added blocks, another switch costume, and another say. So breaking these four blocks down here. So now he's going to be switching to a different costume. As you can see, I just clicked in there. So these are the four blocks that are running. Switching his costume because now we're kind of pondering. Joining in another switch costume, as you see, now he's waving, and then now he's introducing himself. So to set up your say block here, you're going to grab from the operators a join block. So you're going to pull out join, here it is, and then you're going to combine that with your answer. So go to sensing, grab an answer, and put that in. So whatever you want yours to say, like mine says hello here, and combining that with the answer. So what that does is when you type your answer in, so he asks you a question, what's your name? You type your name in, and then he comes back with greeting you like, hey Sam, I'm Josh. And so that is what that's doing. So setting that up, and once you do that, popping it in that say as that one is here. So now you have that say done. And then under that, we're doing another costume change. So now he's waving, greeting himself, and then introducing himself as Josh. Okay, so once you have this first block of code ready, go ahead and run it. We'll be running a lot during this tutorial because there's a lot going on, so we want to make sure that it's going and moving as we want it to. Perfect. So he's doing the costume changes, asking, backdrop is already set. He's combining my answer with his response. Okay, so next, we're going to do our if, then, else statement. So I'm going to take this block of code off so that we can focus on this one. There, let's move it. Okay, so first we're going back to another question. So interacting, grab another ask block, pull it out into your workspace. And then we're going to set up our if, then, else statement. So going into control, grabbing out an if, then, else. And we're going to be using if, then, else, our operators. So we're going to be using our equal operator and our answer quite a bit within this video. So even if I've had people just pull out a few of the if then else statements on the side, that way they're just kind of handy. You can do that and have that part set up already. And so what that would look like if you did do that, you would grab it on the side, you'd pull out an answer, you'd also pull out an equal sign from your operators. And then you would combine your answer to your operator and put that in your statement. And so you could do, again, depending on how long your project is, if you're following along with this one or doing custom, you might have quite a few of them, you might only have a couple of them. And so just having them already set up will save you time on coding, and that way you can really just get the interaction and the questions and stuff in there, because we will be combining the answers again with whatever you say, and the number obviously will be changed to a word or phrase or something as you interact. So you can take a moment to set up a few of these if then else statements with your operator and your answer already inside of the statement. So once you have that, now we're going to go back to the main part. So your question should already be in there. Next, the if then else statement should already be in there. And then now go ahead and grab your operator and your answer. So put your operator and your answer block in there. So responding back to your question, for mine it says, how's it going? My answer is going to equal good. So if they reply back with good, it's going to say, so glad to hear it for 2 seconds. So go ahead and grab your say and reply back. Else, meaning if they say something other than good as their response, it'll say, glad we get to chat today. And then it'll switch costumes. So go ahead and grab at least one say to put in your else statement. So that'll be under here. So under the else, grab at least one response. If you're doing a costume change, you can add that too. Otherwise, maybe you just have one say to come back to it. If you're following along, next we'll grab a wait under our costume change and then add our next costume change. So mine switches from Devon C to Devon A. And then when you're ready, we'll run the block. So mine's going to say good. I'm going to run this twice to see what happens if I give a different answer. Good, so he gives both responses, so it's working how I want it to work. So please feel free at any time during this video to pause it and work through your code block and then restart the video when you're ready. Okay, so now that that part is done, I'm going to connect that block to our first block. And now we're going to work through our second if then else statement. So this one is a little bit longer. It's kind of like the heart, the chunk of the interaction here. Again, we're being very repetitive within this video, so just take your time and work through the questions or the dialogue you want to have. So we're starting with another ask and wait. Again, you get that in your sensing block. For this, it's going to be, do you want to go to my favorite place? My if and operator is going to be equal to again, so my answer equal to, and if the user puts in yes, my response is going to switch costume to Devon B. My first backdrop switch to playground is going to say, yep, it's a playground at a park. I love to play soccer with friends. So taking a moment to set up how you want that first if statement to go between your ask and your say. So between the user replying to your question, how do you want the interaction to play out? And that's going to determine how many costume changes or backdrops or say you put within this first if then statement. So right in the first block here. And then jumping down underneath our say, we're going to do our last 3 blocks within this portion. I'm asking another question. What's your favorite subject at school? I'm going to say, so giving a response, I love answer for 2 seconds. So I love, and I'm going to combine the user's answer in my reply. So here we have that answer being popped up again. We're joining it. So using that from our operators, join. And by join, again, I want to just reiterate, joining is joining the user's answer with the interaction. So Josh's answer is going to combine whatever they type in the chat box. And then after that, he's going to reply, but lunch is my favorite subject. Okay. Now, once you have your if-then set up, we're going to jump to the else. So if they say yes, after you ask the question, do you want to go to my favorite place? They say yes, this is what'll play. If they say no or anything outside of yes, doesn't matter what they say, if it's not yes, then we'll jump to, switch to costume Devin D, say, say, let's stay here for now, and then say there's some cool birds around. And then we'll switch costume to Devin A. So again, our if then else. If they say yes, it'll play this portion, our first chunk. If they say anything other than yes, it'll play this second portion. So now I'm going to test this out and see what happens. So first I'm going to say yes and see if it runs how I want it to run. So you can see it combined my answer of art with his response. And so now I'm going to run it again and say something other than yes. So I'm going to say maybe. Perfect. And so it completely ran how I wanted to run. So take a moment to set that up, your first and second statements within your if then and your else. And again, you can use as many of these say joining answers as you want to. So if you have more than one question within that statement, say instead of doing one ask, maybe you have an ask after each say. You say something and then you ask the user a question. You might have more of these joining. So you might have a lot more of these being used than I do for this one. Okay, so again, take some time, pause the video, go through and set up your interaction in a way that feels good for you and that is fun for you and your project. Okay, so now I'm going to combine this block with the above block there. So far we have a pretty good chunk done, over halfway there. And next, we're going to do, let's see, we're going to do another kind of big chunk here. There we go. So now this is kind of more of Devin interacting with you with a little bit of questions. There's only 2 questions in here and mostly him just interacting with the user. So first we start with an ask, a question for the user. What's your favorite food? We join that again, our answer with oh really, combining what the user says with his response. So that is the first 2 blocks. Pulling our ask and our say. And again, I joined my answer with Devin's answer or Josh's answer. Okay, and next, he's going to switch costume to Devin A. We're going to add a pause or a wait. And so what that does is going to allow some time in between the switch costume and the say. So if I didn't have a wait in between the 2, it would go by so quickly you wouldn't really notice it. So adding just even a slight wait of 1 second or even a half a second, depending on how your costume or what your costume is, might be enough for you. But having that pause will really allow you to kind of flow through it a little bit more seamlessly versus it kind of looking like a flash. So adding that wait in between makes it really nice. And then I have 2 more says under there. So after my wait, I have 2 says. I only eat pizza and ice cream and all day, every day. So instead of having one long say of combining I only eat pizza and ice cream with all day, every day, splitting it up into 2 shows it differently. So let's put it this side. So you can see how it interacts here. He's saying one statement and then he's saying another, as if we're just having a normal conversation in real life versus just kind of spurting it in one long thing. And it also makes the readability easier. So readability is how easy the user can read the message. So breaking it up into as many says as you need to, even if he's telling you a long story that you're interacting with, having a chunk of at least 5 to 6 words, probably not more than 6 words per se, is going to make the user a lot happier and a lot easier for them to read, especially if you're sharing this again with friends or family or online. It just makes it a lot smoother for people to kind of interact with your game. So after that, we have another costume change here. And then another wait in between our costume change. So he switches costumes twice within this interaction, just with this little interaction here. And after that costume change, another question. So asking what's your favorite color, his response, and then he has another response joining your response with his favorite color. So again, if you have multiple questions in here, your joint answer, you might have a lot of them, you might have none of them. But if you're following along with me, then you can just put one after your say. And then he's going to close up this section with we have so much in common. And now I'm going to run this portion. So now he's combined my color of yellow with his response. And now it's just going to keep running. So I'm going to close that off for now. But yeah, so running it from the complete beginning, let's do that one more time. Favorite food, let's do pizza. Combining pizza with his response, gives his response. Again, another say in short words, color, and then his response. And then he adds my answer to his favorite color. Okay, perfect. So once you have that portion set, and again, we did set up more of the if then else statements beforehand. If you did do that, those probably would be in here somewhere if you had a more detailed story or interaction. So that's where they would come in. Okay, so now let me find, there we go. Now we're going to combine that chunk of code to the one before it. Okay, so now we're going to break this down into 2 sections. So we have 2 more sections left. Yay! So let's do it. So we're going to cut it off here. So now this is the joke. There's a joke he's going to tell before the end of the interaction. Starting with another ask. What's your favorite season? So he's asking a question. This is where your if then is coming into. This time I'm using two of the operators. One that's going to reply to if the answer is summer, and one that's going to reply to if the answer is spring. So if the answer is summer or spring, so I'm using my or operator here, or. If the answer is summer or spring, it's going to respond to I love the heat too. Else, meaning if the answer is anything other than summer or spring, I'm not the cold weather type. And so that is going to be the response for the if then else. And again, this can be maybe a little bit longer, again, depending on your interaction. So setting up, and I do encourage you to try an or operator with 2 different responses or even more responses. You can add as many responses in there as you want to. And I have them here. So once you have your if then else with at least 2 different operators in there, we'll move on. So now we're going to finish this little block with a say, going to ask a joke. So there's going to be 2 ask in a row and then another say. So with that, that's going to lock right into the if then else statement. And now we're going to run it. So I'm first replying to something that is not in. So he's replying now to the else statement. Now there's the joke. And this is a really funny joke. I actually got from another Scratch user and I thought it was hilarious. So I was like, I'm going to keep that. It's perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to run it again and I'm going to use one of the operator answers. So let's type in summer. And now we have the first response from the then statement. And I don't need to do the joke again. All right, so once you have that section, we're going to lock it onto the code block in front, and then we're going to finish off with the last section here. Okay, perfect. So this is the last code block that I have for this tutorial, and it's an if-then statement and then a closing, or, kind of a goodbye greeting. So with the if-then statement, we're going to be changing the backdrop using our equal operator. We're also going to be using a looks. We haven't done this yet, but a looks of the backdrop name. So we have backdrop. From the drop-down menu, we select name, and then I'm having it equal to school 2. So my backdrop of school 2, if it equals that, then we're going to say gotta go, or say my friends are waiting. Else, so if it doesn't equal to school 2, then it's going to reply back, well, I'm off for 2 seconds, and then hope we can chat again soon. So this one, again, depending on if you're doing backdrop changes or not, or if you're doing a final backdrop change or not, you may or may not even have this code block. You might just have another interaction block, like another if-then of just interactions, and maybe it might look more like this with a question and more responses. But if you are doing a closing backdrop change, it will look something like this. So putting your equal operator in there. Option 2 would be to not have your equal operator in there for backdrop name, but to make it do a backdrop change. So for this, it will run with the rest of the code on how the school 2 will pop up or if it won't. So that'll all depend on the user's response. So if you don't want your backdrop change to depend on the user's response, then you can just set it up to change automatically. Okay, so once you have that down and decided if it's going to be just another interaction, like if you're making your interaction longer, you might just keep going, or if you're going to use this last backdrop change to kind of close out the interaction. So this is going to be a closeout for me, so I'm going to have a nice salutation. It was nice to meet you with my final say block. Okay, and then from there, of course, I just attach it to my final block of code. And that is all. That is all for this video. Again, this is, as we've kind of run through it today, of just how to set up your chat box. You do need to have some experience with using Scratch just so you know where the code blocks are and how to use them. But again, it is very repetitive, so even if you are newer to Scratch, you can totally just jump right on in and kind of get familiar and still do this super fun project. I encourage you to share with friends and family and let them interact with your new little sprite bot. It's very fun, and I hope that you take some of the challenges of creating different backdrop changes and maybe even having another chatbot or a second character in with your first, and just really have fun and get creative with this.